These last 2 months of new releases have perfectly summed up the state of gaming in 2025 and beyond. Mindseye dropped around a week ago from Build a Rocket Boy. It's kind of been all over social media. You guys have definitely seen it. The studio from the ex-Rockstar boss Leslie Benzies, and the game was sold and marketed as some blockbuster experience, but instead it launched in chaos, kinda as everyone already expected. And then you contrast that with an indie game, which we're gonna do for the remainder of this video, like Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which dropped back in April. It felt like something rare, a small studio RPG that smashed all expectations, both critically and commercially. So what's really going on here? Why does this small French indie game conquer the gaming world, while the AAA release with money, pedigree, and hype completely bombs? In this video, we're going to talk about how vision, execution, and knowing your strengths as a game matter more than budget and hype in video games in 2025. Let's get into it. Claire Obscure was ambitious but not overextended. It did exactly what everyone wanted it to do. The game, like I said, was designed by an indie team, and that team made up about 30 core developers with some outsourced help here and there, and it was all on Unreal Engine 5. And the idea, the scope of it was clear. It was turn-based combat, and there was, real-time reactions all wrapped in this very atmospheric world, and critics praised this very artistic focus. Polygon even called it a triumph of both storytelling and combat design, a game that shines a ray of hope in a hopeless dystopian world. So that focus freed the team from developer syndrome, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit more, but it's the itch to chase every trend or crowd that we see so many AAA studios fall victim to. So instead, Sandfall Interactive created something distinct, polished, heartfelt. It felt like there was real passion behind it, and it had more than enough polish and novelty to feel like more than an indie game. Truthfully, it's one of the best indie games I've ever played, and I don't even particularly love RPG games, especially turn-based ones, but this one definitely was just incredible. And then by contrast, you have mindseye, which completely overreached, and I get it, it's hard because these games are entirely different, completely different genres and everything. There's so many things, though, that are going on here that are so easily juxtaposed, despite how different these games are. So like how I said, Claire Obscure was a very specific vision. You could tell the developers knew exactly what they wanted to do. Mindseye, it felt like they had no idea what they were going for. You know what I mean? Like they were just trying to do everything all at once, and so they did nothing all that good at all. There were times where it felt like Watch Dogs, times where it felt like Cyberpunk. There's a couple of other games that come to mind, but it was like the worst of all of these games, combined. Leslie Benzies aimed high for this fake open world experience with user-generated content, cinematic storytelling, dystopian satire, and all of this with a very extensive marketing push, including expensive trailers. They had, some of the Summer Games Fest reveals, very cinematic advertising, which isn't a bad thing, in theory, but the result was a halfway product, and that is a bad thing. That's misleading, the market. I mean, the technical issues were just rampant. There was glitches, crashes, you could barely run over 30 FPS across all platforms. Xbox didn't even get the day one patch. The gameplay was described as dated, repetitive, and uninspiring. It almost just felt like it was from a last-gen game. Despite being sold as a GTA 6 killer, it didn't even really compete with GTA 5 gameplay, a game that's 12, 13 years old now. So like how I said, the old saying just holds here. A little done right beats a lot done poorly. And Claire Obscure never promised some sprawling mega world that was gonna redefine gaming. It promised a thoughtful, tight experience, and it delivered on that. Mindseye promised spectacle, but it was kind of just loose and all over the place, and it underdelivered on just the basics. It was hardly even playable on day one. Just a side note here, I love how the playing field has been leveled out so much in recent years with the resources like Unreal Engine 5 being so widely available and convenient. Like, people like you and I could go on YouTube and figure out how to, make a game in Unreal Engine 5. So I just love how indie games are able to use this to their advantage. And that's another key point that I wanted to hit on in this video. I just didn't really know where to throw it in. But back to the main argument here. Indies like Clair Obscur benefit from earned trust from the players. So when it hits, players feel like they're part of the ride. There's a trust there. And the game was authentic, surprising, great story, and that matters to players, especially when so many games lack that these days. It's just becoming more and more important for games to come out fully finished and authentic, and that's exactly what Clair Obscur did. And then, AAA, conversely, it kind of just fuels suspicion, especially in 2025, which is not a good thing. Sure, you had some bad AAA games from back in the day here and there, but for the most part, the games at least came out fully finished. Recently, it's been a trend for games to just be marketed hard and released half finished with a big price tag, kind of like Cyberpunk, but they eventually figured it out. mindseye was marketed hard, of course, and then, there were all of these tweets accusing preview reviewers of being paid actors. They even said that anyone bashing the game was being paid by Rockstar to do so. So the pushback was instant, that's for sure. Players felt bait and switched. On Steam, the user reviews pretty much went straight to mostly negative. It's bad PR, it's erosion of trust, I guess you could say. Indies start with like goodwill and they add to it. AAA starts with hype, and if the product fails to deliver, the goodwill drains fast. And it's not that it's a bad thing to start with hype. I mean, you look at GTA 6. That game is entirely fueled by hype, but we know that Rockstar is going to deliver because they've created a trust, despite being a AAA, quadruple A company, whatever it may be. But most of these companies just skip out on that step. They don't create that trust, and then that's where the skepticism comes in. And a lot of the times, the skepticism is pretty deserved, like how it was for mindseye. It seems like everyone knew, or at least that everyone was a little bit skeptical that the game was going to be a bit of a disaster at launch, and it was. CGI trailers and celebrity developers can't mask a broken experience, and Exhibit A is mindseye. So the launch issues, like how I said, frame rate problems, so many glitches with NPCs and, exploding cars and traffic and all was kind of just a pretty big problem, but they aren't small problems. They break the experience, and users demanded refunds. Sony actually offered refunds. When people are paying $60 and can't finish a game, everything else becomes irrelevant. And then again, on the other hand, Clair Obscur had a clean launch, no drama, no immediate patch deployments, just complete praise. And for players, that quiet confidence means everything. You get in, you play, you fall in love with the game, story, the art style, you tell your friends, and so on. That's how those games grow. mindseye is just kind of hollow. Clair Obscur felt fresh, and it was kind of, unique and polished. mindseye had a good foundation, don't get me wrong. Or maybe not a good foundation, but the template was there, the structure was there. It's just not quite there yet. It kind of feels like it's in an early development phase. Reviews like generic third-person shooter, ham-fisted dystopian cyberpunk turd, basic gunplay, no melee, no reloads, bullets feel like mosquito sneezes. All of those reviews paint a pretty clear, vivid picture if you haven't actually played the game yet. Some argue if the glitches or, some of these bugs were patched, it might be a decent $30 game, but the foundation is still lacking for a $60 AAA game, and there's skepticism whether it'll ever be good. I mean, the world is just kind of linear, short, and unengaging. Overall, it's kind of just a short game. It's like 15 hours. So this might just be one of those games that they, throw in the trash and hope that they can just learn from their mistakes. Clair Obscur didn't need any of these big patches or big, ads after launch. It kind of just grew organically with 1 million copies in 3 days, 2 million in 12 days, and then 3.3 million in the first month or so. It showed how an indie game can go toe-to-toe with AAA sustainability, with thoughtful PR, multi-regional appeal, Game Pass availability, an insane soundtrack. If you guys haven't listened to that, you should definitely listen if you didn't play. And all of this was without overspending or overhyping. mindseye, you had big money, big hype, but nothing really stuck. Instead of social media buzz and admiration, there was memes, refunds, game-breaking bugs, developer apologies. You even had the CFO and someone else, some other executive, I forget off the top of my head, even resigned right before the game came out, which is a complete dumpster fire in the first week of this game being out. So yeah, there's patches that have been promised, apologies are out, but the damage might be irreversible at this point. We've seen this before with Cyberpunk 2077, but that game eventually rebounded. mindseye may not have the patience, or they might not have the fan base or the resources to be able to come back like how Cyberpunk did. And I'm not sure really how many more titles with this kind of a budget we're going to be able to see from Build a Rocket Boy. Despite the fact that it sucks to see hardworking developers contribute to a horribly managed game, on the flip side of it all, it's very refreshing to see small teams, vision, clarity, technical polish, and authenticity just kind of all smashed together into a really good game. And it shows that modern tools like Unreal Engine 5 and some other global contractor networks, how they really, let indies punch above their weight class. So yeah, we have a great story here, indie triumph versus AAA failure. I don't want to see any games or studios fail, but that's just kind of where we're at right here, and it does go deeper. It's a snapshot of the gaming ecosystem in 2025, a time of abundance where tools are available to everyone, where players are increasingly craving meaningful experiences over spectacle. It's a signal to indie developers to do more with less, and a warning to AAA developers that a big budget does not equal a good game. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to have a conversation with you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and besides for that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.